Welcome back. Today we're joined by Chanelle Chalazan, founder of Chic and Charmed Boutique, a jewelry brand she started at just 14 years old. From spending hours handcrafting jewelry for friends to building a business that empowers women to embrace their sparkle, Chanelle shares the journey today behind turning a childhood passion to a growing brand. Join us today as we discuss entrepreneurship, the lessons of building a business, and how jewelry can be a form of self-expression. Welcome to this episode of Rose Tinted Ceilings, where we break glass ceilings to let girls shine. You're listening to episode 113 featuring Chanelle. Learn more about her today. Would you like to introduce yourself, Chanelle?
Yeah, for everyone listening, this is actually a very special episode because we met Chanelle before maybe a year back. We got to speak to her at a National Women's Show and we got to speak a little bit about her story. But now we're sitting down with her for a full episode, which is so exciting because Chanelle, I'm assuming this journey has not been just like a walk in the park. It cannot be something that we could condense. Yeah. So we couldn't just fit that all in a 60-second reel. So I'm so glad you're here today. So let me just ask you, let's start from the beginning, right? What made you want to start your own jewelry business?
That came from my mom because she was always blinged up. So that kind of jewelry idea stemmed from there. And my dad's an entrepreneur in the construction field. So he kind of, he knows entrepreneurship. He showed me all the ropes. So that kind of interconnected to my jewelry business. But before I even thought of it as a business, I was just, playing with jewelry at, 13 years old. I was seeing what looked good, what matched, what went well. And then I think when I started that and I realized that people actually kind of wanted to buy the stuff, I started selling on Facebook Marketplace. And it turned into one lady coming a day to my house to 20 women a day. And I was like, okay, this is insane that people even love my stuff. But I think we could, make it into a business or even try, right? So my first trade show, we did it in Warman, Saskatchewan, a small town. And that was when I was 14. That was our first show. It was, I think, September. And we've got really good feedback from that show. People were so impressed and so excited. And I think that's when me and my dad thought, you know what, hey, this could like go big if we wanted it to. So that's when we kind of just went full throttle and we did Canada-wide tour for the last year and a half. And going on more podcasts, going on more interviews, getting more media attention, and just, getting our name out.
Absolutely. That is so cool how you started this that was so funny hearing that you were genuinely just running this out of your house on Facebook Marketplace. Because when we met you, this was already a full-grown business. So hearing the beginnings is so hilarious. So I just want to ask, like, what's maybe one challenge that you had from going from point A, as in a small homegrown business, to point B, where you are touring the entire country?
I think when you start at a young age, you get a little bit scared and you haven't built that confidence. Like I was already confident as a child from my mom. She was confident, so I learned that from her. But in business, I didn't have that business confidence to, walk into a room like I owned it, which I kind of do now. But, you have to learn that by doing, by going to the shows, by meeting people, by going on interviews and speaking at schools like I've been doing recently. You learn by doing and you gain that confidence over time.
Oh my gosh, I love it. And I honestly that imagery, like Maggie was saying, of just 20 women lining up at your house is hilarious. And I think that like at that point, a lot of people they have this idea and they think, it would be so cool to start this business or this organization, but they just don't know where to start. So I'm curious, what would be your thoughts? What would be your take on that?
I mean, in business, there's so many like angles to look at because there's so many different industries you can go in as well, but there's so many things that are so intricate that when people think about it, it's like a big whoosh. It's like so much to think about. Then some people think this is too much, right? This is just, I don't know where to start. And that's what lots of times happens. But you have to just kind of dig at it, right? It's like a piece of cake. If you don't, you're not going to get to the frosting if you don't keep biting into it, right? So when I first started, of course, I had to think about my style of jewelry that I wanted, right? That's kind of where I kind of bite it at, right? Seeing what I wanted to sell instead of just going into something and then not having a passion towards it. Because some people start a business for money, then they don't really feel, they don't really like what they're selling or they're doing, and then it just doesn't keep going. You don't have a passion for what you're doing, right? So when I was starting, I wanted to find out for personally, what did I want to sell? What kind of style of jewelry did I want? Did I want it to sell real gold? Did I want it diamonds? Do I want, different kind? There's all different kind of styles, right? There's modern styles or traditional. So what did I want it to do? So when I always knew I loved the bling. I always wanted a sparkle, and I always wanted something that shined. I knew that from the get-go. So once I kind of had the idea of the jewelry I wanted, we had to look at our competition, of course. So when you look at our competition, they're 4 times our price, right? And obviously, we tried to make sure our quality was a little bit better when I started. I wanted to keep it affordable, so even girls my age at McDonald's, I have friends at McDonald's who are working. They can't go out and buy an $80 pair of earrings, right? That's almost a whole day of work. But $15, $20, that's feasible. Even if you had to get your mom to give you 10 and you put 10 towards it, right? You could do that. But that's why I thought, you know what? Let's have no stores. Let's have no employees. I'll just do it by myself. With my dad, and we'll go all over and get our name out. And then that's why we can keep it about a quarter of the price of our competition. And when I started too, there was a big gap in the market. There was either, low quality jewelry for low prices or high quality jewelry for high prices. So I wanted a high quality piece of jewelry for a low price. And that's how we kind of came up. And I also wanted it good quality. So we made all our products waterproof. So we have a water coating that goes over top. So a little bit different than competition. And of course, we have some different designs and so forth. But that's kind of how we came up with everything.
That is so insightful. I'm like hearing you talk about this. We were just mentioning, right? Like you have to have this passion if you want to be successful in business. We can hear the passion so clearly with
Good,
this.
I'm glad.
So thank you for sharing that, because that's so cool how you weren't just like, oh, I like jewelry, so I'm going to start selling jewelry. There's also so much thought that goes into it, right? With looking at your competitors, looking at what they're doing, what you're doing differently. So I want to ask, how do you make sure like people know that? How do you say you're making your name known countrywide? What are some things you are doing to continue that growth?
So when I started, I was big on doing trade shows. I didn't really have much social media when I started because to be honest, I was kind of scared of getting my name out. I was scared of who would judge me, if I would, get in trouble for getting my name out and so forth. There's so many things. So I was like, what? If I go to trade shows, I just connect with the people in person, and I know who I'm talking to, and I know that nothing can happen, right? I'll know if they're judging me or not, right? So that's kind of story. We did a couple shows. We done a bridal show here, I think was our second show, and we've done the Rock and Gem show here. And then that's when I realized that people were like, where's your website? Where can I see this? Where's your Facebook? And I was like, I have nothing. I have nothing to show. So that's when I kind of started getting social media going. And then it kind of just soared from there. Social media just, how one person talks and one person shares, and it kind of just exploded. So then we started doing bigger trade shows, which is one way of good advertising as well, because you're making in-person connections, right? So that's nice. But online, you're also reaching a whole different audience of different people and the younger generation, of course. So it's nice to connect with both audience and also, get your name out even more. But when I started advertising even traditional wise with billboards and radio, I wanted to kind of grab at every audience. And, not everybody's going to love what you sell, but if I can, even get 1% of the population to look at me, maybe that will, change a little bit so somebody can hear my story, see what I'm selling, and, understand what the business is all about a little bit better. So we did our first campaign in Saskatoon of last year. So now we do 2 campaigns in Saskatoon, but now we're doing campaigns in Regina and Calgary. So our billboard ranges all over. Hopefully we go to Vancouver for our next billboard campaign. So, and then radio, we're on Saskatoon's radio, and I'm hoping to expand that. So kind of just grabbing at everything and seeing what works the best, right?
Wow, I love this kind of entrepreneurial spirit. There's no better way to put it. I feel coming out of just, I like how you put it as well, like expanding and exploding almost across all of these different spaces. And I'm wondering, you spoke a bit about like the challenge of being afraid of being like perceived or judged. And I'm curious, what other challenges do you feel like were the toughest or the biggest in your business journey? And how did you overcome those challenges?
Well, when I started so young, people also make assumptions about what you can do and what you can't do at a young age. So a little story would be when I wanted to do billboards, I actually called Phil, who works for Patterson here in Saskatoon. He's the regional manager. And I said, I was 15 at the time. So I was like, hi, I want to do a billboard campaign. And he was like, who are you? Like, we don't deal with kids. Like, this is insane. Like, are you like, I think people, they believe that it's not real because entrepreneurship in a young age is just not talked about. Young entrepreneurs, it's just not, people don't really talk about entrepreneurship for young people anymore. So I think when that happened, and then I had to give my dad's phone number to Phil, and they talked, and then we met him in the office, and that's when he was like, you're different in person, right? I can understand what you're trying to do, but then it's just that they make assumptions about you, and it makes it harder to get anywhere in business because nobody really knows what you're thinking and your mindset. So you have to build credibility behind your name just to even get a seat at the table. When you're young, where when you have a 40-year-old something businessman, he gets everything right away. But when you have a female entrepreneur, but a young female entrepreneur, it creates more of a barrier compared to other people.
Absolutely. And the way you speak about that reminds me of something you said earlier in this episode, where you say now you're able to walk into a room and know that you belong in the room and know that you own the room. Is there any advice you can give to the young girls watching who might not know how to develop that sort of confidence? What can they do to be able to walk into any seat at any table and know that they could belong there?
Well, with my confidence, I didn't build it overnight. It took lots by doing, of course, and life experience. But I would say, the more you do something, the more you'll feel comfortable, the more confidence that is built. So it doesn't even have to be with business. It could be with school. The more you do, let's say, if you study for a test, the more confident you feel for that test. So I would say just keep doing it. Keep, learning. You learn by doing, and you'll build that confidence over time, but it's not going to happen overnight, and there's no secret myth, or there's not the secret potion that can give it to you, of course.
Absolutely. And we spoke a little about how you feel like as a young female entrepreneur, you were facing these kind of assumptions in the past. Do you feel like you still are battling those now, even though you have seen some success? Or is it maybe a little less now?
I think it's a little bit less now. I think over time I tried to not notice it because my dad's such a big part of the company that if there's any challenges, I kind of just tell him and he kind of deals with it for me because of my age. But I think over time, when you build your name up and you build that credibility by going on different podcasts and interviews and going to more cities and just, making your brand bigger, people kind of, they're not as scared to support you, I think. So I think less that people are kind of questioning who I am. They kind of know who I am. And, over time you see that with shows. I go, like when we go to Vancouver or Calgary, people from last year bought from me. They say my earrings are perfect, or they're great quality, or I wore mine in the shower and they didn't fall apart compared to your competition. And that builds trust with your clients, and that builds loyal customers, so they don't feel scared to come and support you. And then that, of course, gets around and they talk, and kind of just all interconnects in business.
Oh, I love that. I mean, talking about like the interconnectedness of all of these clients, these customers that you get to meet, all of these trade shows that you get to attend. I'm curious if you have any like favorite moments with your customers, or really memorable conversations you've had. I would just love to hear.
Oh, there's so many. But, last year, or it was this year, but a couple months ago, we've done the Winnipeg's Women's Show. And that was such a special show because it was on International Women's Weekend. So it was already special to start with, to go out there. And it's just such an amazing kind of community just to see what it's like. And of course, every city's going to have their own community. But it was such a supportive community. And the lady who actually did the women's show out there, she actually brought 4 new channels to interview me for that weekend. And that's what was so special, was just, talking to Global News and CTV, and she brought City News, and then there was I think the Manitoba Sun or so forth like that. But it was just so amazing to connect with local news companies and just get my name out further in Winnipeg and Manitoba, and expanding further in there was amazing. And we've done the Calgary Stampede last year, but this year as well. But this year was just extra special because there were so many clients and customers who knew me now from last year and other shows that we've done, like the National Women's Show in Calgary. And we've also, took so many pictures of all our clients. It's just such a great memory to have that we're actually making a change in the jewelry industry and not just making more mud in the dirt, right? Not just making noise. We're actually changing people, right?
Oh, I love that. And Chanelle, before we started recording this, you mentioned very briefly that your Calgary Stampede earnings this year were double what they were last year, despite the attendance being lower. That blew my mind. So what do you think was behind that? Like, do you have any guesses to where that insane growth came from?
Lots of people will look at such a broad statement to that. They'll say, well, maybe because people can't afford it this year, maybe because, houses are more, maybe because of, employment went down. But I don't think it's because of that personally. I think for us, our sales were double because we know more people in Alberta and we've got our name out more in Calgary. And I think our customers know who we are and we built that credibility. So even when it was not even like the Calgary Stampede, we've done shows, the Mom Market in Saskatchewan, we've done Regina and Saskatoon. Our sales every time we do her market are double because more people know us. So that also you could think, but only maybe 1,000 people attend that compared to 1.4 million, right? So it's on a smaller scale, but more people know you, so you're going to see more changes, right? So I think the Calgary Stampede, things are getting tough. Yes, there's lots of money going out for families around Canada, but I also think attendance is just, it's hard to say because, when during the summertime, people are at the lake, people might be working, people are out of town. It's hard to say what happened this year compared to last year, but it only was down about 60,000 people. So it was still in the 1.3, 1.4 million. So you still got lots of people to the Calgary Stampede, but for us, our sales were doubled because of the credibility that we built over the year.
Wow. That is just absolutely incredible. And just hearing about your journey fills me with so much joy and pride as well. Just seeing a woman trailblazer is incredible. And I'm sure for a lot of the young girls listening right now, they're probably like, oh my God, she's so cool. But like, what can we do to pursue our passions? So I'd love to hear from you any pieces of advice that you would have for our listeners.
You have to start somewhere, right? It's better to start early than start not at all, right? Even if it's just digging at an idea, seeing what works out. In business, not everything's going to work out and go 100% the way you planned it, but that's one of the best things, that you kind of just have to go with the flow and see what happens. But at the end of the day, everything works out. But a piece of advice I would give is that you have to take opportunities when you see them as well, right? I think lots of the times we get nervous or we get scared and we're not ready to change our lifestyle yet. We're comfortable where we are and we don't want that to change. But the only reason that we have to have that happen is that you won't see growth within you, but you might not see growth within your company. Or maybe it's at school. If you're not doing your studies, you're not going to see growth in your grades. So you could think about this in other ways as well, right? So I think you have to turn any no or maybe with opportunities into a yes. Do them, see what happens. Same for me. I've been scared to do shows, even, going to Ottawa, which is, 2,000 miles away from Saskatoon. It's, scary to be so far away, right? But if I wouldn't have took that chance, Ottawa was maybe our third or fourth best market in Canada. So it's good to take those opportunities to see what they're going to take you and where they're going to take you.
I love that so much. Everything, again, as Isabel said, has been so inspiring hearing from you. Now I want to ask you, do you have any goals for the business in the next coming years? Like, what's next for you guys?
My goal for Chic and Charm is to expand it even more in Canada. I know lots of businesses, they're just in the western provinces and they're like, I'm Canada wide. That's not Canada wide. I'm talking about, we're going to go right from Vancouver right to Newfoundland. We're going to do shows all over Canada. We have shows I want to book in Yellowknife. We want to go to the Yukon and further up north, but even, doing more shows in BC. Like tomorrow, we're actually flying to Kelowna for the Rock and Gem show. And then we have Victoria, back to Vancouver's women's show and the bridal show in Vancouver. So hopefully I'll see some people there. But, just going further western and going eastern, of course, we have Ottawa and Toronto booked for shows in Barrie. But we also have Fredericton and New Brunswick. And we have Halifax and we have Newfoundland, and just going all over Canada. And then, of course, expanding our collection range and doing more different designs and so forth, and going on more billboards. Like I mentioned, we have Regina and Calgary booked compared to just our hometown in Saskatoon. But I want to expand to Edmonton and Vancouver and all over Canada, right? And just you have to take some time, and not everything's going to happen in 1 year. But if we can just keep expanding and more people know us, that can be a possible goal for Chic and Charm. And of course, I want to maybe go on a national scale across the globe. I want to expand to Australia and UK and hopefully the US in the next couple of years. So just making it more known global, obviously.
Amazing. We cannot wait to see it. Especially if you're in Vancouver. We'll be keeping our eyes out, but that is incredible. Where can our viewers find you?
Yeah, so you can find all our products on chicandcharm.com, our website, and then on there you'll scroll down to our Instagram, Chic and Charm by Chanelle, and then our Facebook's on there as well, so you can see all different things.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on today. We are so excited to see you grow as well. And thank you for taking some time to speak with us.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me, ladies.